Hey, what's going on? It's Matt Polis, and it's time for another episode of MeatSauce for Tuesday, March the 30th, 2021. This is episode number 24. Welcome back, and thanks for joining me. If you are listening to this on Apple Podcasts and have not yet given me a 5-star rating, please consider doing so. I'm trying to get to 10 ratings over the course of the next month or so. I'm currently at 7. I think last week I was at 6. So it looks like we're kind of adding one every week. It would be awesome to get to 10. It's just a way for people to continue to find the show, as the algorithm for podcasts really hasn't caught up to its popularity yet. You know, when you think about music or videos on YouTube, those algorithms really play into, you know, the viewer and what they listen to and what they watch, and they're really well done. And that just isn't really there yet for podcasting. So the only real way to get new people to start listening to the show is just either through word of mouth, sharing on social media, and just giving it a 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts. It's really all I know. So I would really appreciate it. Would love to continue. Obviously, I say it all the time, but continue to build this show and grow the audience and try to reach new people who maybe would really enjoy listening to this. So I apologize in advance if you can hear any lawnmowers or weed whackers or leaf blowers. It's so loud outside right now because the landscaping company for this apartment complex has started their seasonal duties already. I'm like, the grass is still dead. What are you doing? It hasn't even rained yet. That's not true. It's rained quite a bit. But the grass is still dead, so my point still stands. I hope the last week or so has treated you well. Let's see, in the world of me, there's not really too much that's new. I'll tell you, though, I have been really, really good at sticking to a routine for the month of March. When I say a routine, I mean just any old routine, I guess. I've been really good about getting out and walking. I think as I'm recording this, and if you listen to this before, you know, the earlier episodes I've talked about before, I love walking. I've started to run a little bit, mostly because softball starts in a couple weeks, and I want to have ran a little bit before that starts. So I've been starting to implement running, not the whole time throughout my walk, but every so often I'll start running just to kind of get the blood flowing and get my body used to doing that again. But I've been out on a walk, as I'm recording this, I think 17 times this month. So number 18 will be today, and then I'll get out tomorrow for number 19. So I was really hoping to get to 20 this month, but I was on track. I basically had so that's 11 days that I had quote unquote off to not go walk. And I went to Dayton for a few days and was busy there. And then I have been having some work done on my foot. And so when I have that done, I'm pretty much out of commission for a couple days and can't really move very easily. So I've missed a few days there. So I had to walk the final 10 days of this month every day if I was going to get to 20, but I took off Sunday. So that's whatever, but I don't know. I think the reason I've been so consistent with walking this month is because I haven't been walking a ton of miles each time. You know, I focused more on building a better routine and getting out more often, you know, especially as it's getting warmer, getting sunnier for more often. It's better for me to get out more and maybe do, you know, less miles. So typically I'll do just over 2 miles each time. It's usually, I think, like 2.13 or something by the time I get back inside. But I found that like when I go for a 4 or 5 or 6 mile walk, I end up like not walking for several days after that. I don't know. So I just wanted to focus on maybe less miles per day, but just trying to get outside more. So I think I'll end up finishing the month with like, I don't know, maybe 50 miles walked roughly, give or take. I'm pretty happy with that. I mean, you know, I've also been way better about eating less and eating a little more healthy, doing a lot more roasted veggies, a lot more salads and baked chicken, and I've been getting from Costco. They have this brown rice and quinoa packets, and I'm not a big fan of like buying like packaged food that you just throw in the microwave as like a side dish or something. I like to like build the side dish or cook it myself, and mostly because it's cheaper and you can make more of it. But these packets of brown rice and quinoa are so flippin' good. I just can't help myself. They're a great little side dish to go with, the chicken or salmon or whatever it is. So overall, really, really happy with what I've been able to do this month, in regards to routines and just simply eating better, so just trying to take care of my body, and honestly keeping myself positively busy, not getting bogged down by, life in general, just trying to wake up every day and go through, create a routine for myself and go through that, each and every day. So I don't get caught up in the moment of like realization of how stressful life is. If I just can keep moving, have things to do every day, which is something like with this podcast that I just love coming back to, preparing for the show and getting ready, and then the actual recording and then the editing, and it keeps me sharp and keeps me moving. So I really, really enjoy it. Although I will say I drink bourbon like it's my job, which I wish it kind of was. But, that's also has allowed me to drink way less beer, and I've noticed a huge difference in how I feel every day. Just overall less bloated, which, I'm no doctor, but I assume that's a good thing. All right, enough about me, enough about being healthy. Let's get into this week's edition of What's on the Shelf. This week, we are looking at a special bottle that's on my shelf, as it was purchased on my 30th birthday and have enjoyed a pour of it once a month since then. Today, we're looking to the Louisville Distilling Company and the Angel's Envy Kentucky Straight Bourbon Whiskey finished in port wine barrels. The Angel's Envy brand was founded in 2007 by Lincoln Henderson and his son Wes, and is distilled by the Louisville Distilling Company that was founded in 2011. In 2015, Bacardi Limited purchased the Louisville Distilling Company along with the Angel's Envy brand. The name Angel's Envy comes from the fact that barrels of whiskey each year lose liquid in those barrels due to evaporation. This is known as Angel's Share. Lincoln Henderson had said jokingly after tasting their finished whiskey that, quote, "We finally got a better deal than the Angels," unquote. Thus, the name Angel's Envy was born. So this bottle of bourbon comes with a mash bill of 72% corn, 18% rye, and 10% malted barley. It is non-age stated, but is said to be at least 6 years old, and is then finished in ruby port wine casks for an additional 3 to 6 months. These wine casks are made from French oak and are imported straight from Portugal. Angel's Envy comes in at 86.6 proof or 43.3% ABV and retails from anywhere between $50 and $55. On the nose, this for me is super sweet and light, with that 86.6 proof, very light. You can really smell kind of the sweetness of that port wine, which is really interesting. It's my only bottle I have on the shelf that is finished. That's not true. I have another bottle that's finished in PX sherry casks. But anyways, it's almost gone. This one was my first one that was finished in a port wine barrel, or just finished in general. So, like I said, you can really smell the sweetness of the wine, along for me with a little bit of like peanut shells. Comes and goes. It's not a prominent note by any means, but to me, everything within this bourbon is really muted, again, by that lower proof of 86.6 and the sweetness of the wine. On the palate, to me, again, really sweet, feels a little bit soft and thin on the mouthfeel. I think the best thing about Angel's Envy is honestly the bottle. It's beautifully crafted. It's very sleek looking, has a sleek design. The back has these angel's wings that are like engraved into the bottle. And then I got this at the distillery, so they allow you to get an engraving of your choice, like on the front. So I got just 30th birthday put on it. And since my birthday is on the 29th of July, then every month after that on the 29th, I've just poured myself a glass just to enjoy it. So the goal is to kind of finish this bottle, by my 31st birthday. And I kind of want to get, this is not any topic of right now, but I kind of want to get a bottle every year now and do this exact same thing. So, 10 years from now, I'll have 10 years worth of bottles that represented, being 30, being 31, 32. I think it would just be a cool way to kind of look back on, those years and be able to connect like that bottle with what happened that year. So just kind of a cool thing I kind of started myself. But again, the bottle is beautiful. I think this is actually, I've been having a pour of this sometimes with breakfast, and it actually does pretty okay with breakfast. You've got eggs and bacon or sausage, and I haven't done any like waffles or pancakes, but I bet that would be actually really good with the syrup. They do have a cask strength version of this bottle, which I would really like to try. It comes in a really nice like wooden box, but it costs $200. Like, it's insane to me that would cost $200 at cask strength. But I bet the box probably costs $100, and then the bottle itself would be $100. Like, I would probably pay $100 for it, just to again try it once. But I think I would hopefully be able to find a bar somewhere that had the bottle of cask strength that could just buy a pour of it and not actually have to buy the bottle. That way I can try it, say I've had it, and then not have to worry about it anymore. Overall, the presentation of this brand to me is better than the actual liquid itself. And unless they do something to amp up the flavor and make it more affordable, I probably won't be buying another bottle of this. I will say, since yesterday was the 29th, I did have a pour last night of it. And I don't know if it was my mood. I don't know if it was what I had eaten prior to having a pour of that. It actually tasted way better than when I was creating this episode and thinking about this bottle a lot. And it kind of outshined what I'm saying about it. But I still don't think I'll buy another bottle of it. It's definitely, if you want to try a finished bourbon, this would be, it's one of those brands that's kind of well known in that regard to try. I also like the Rabbit Hole Derringer. It's finished in PX sherry casks. That's the other one I have. But there's a bunch of other distilleries that finish their bourbon in wine barrels or cognac or Armagnac, apple brandy, any of that type of stuff. I'm still yet to find a bottle. I know what bottle I want that is finished in apple brandy, but it's near impossible to find. So anyways, like I said, there's a ton of other finished bourbons out there, and I think there's definitely a lot more that are better than this Angel's Envy port wine finished bourbon. It's a fun bottle to have. I'm still glad I bought it. I do really like it. Again, the bottle is really pretty. It's a pretty bottle. But I wish the juice inside was a little better. But that's all I've got for this week's What's on the Shelf. Let's get into some sports from the last week or so. It's been a busy week getting ready for opening day of baseball. But first, let's get into some March Madness. That was back in full swing over the past weekend. Some great games. I really thought Oral Roberts was going to pull off the upset against Arkansas. I mean, they were up by 12 points at one time, just couldn't hold the lead. They just had a great game plan, for the last play of the game. Got up the court in like 3 seconds, had an open shot at the 3-point line, like didn't have to shoot at half court. Got up to the 3-point line, open shot, just couldn't knock it down. And I was ready to just go crazy if he would have made that. So shout out to the incredible run by Oral Roberts. I mean, you take down number 2 Ohio State, you take down number 7 Florida. I forget if you beat somebody else, but then you weren't able to do it against Arkansas. But, would have loved to see them in the Elite Eight. Would have been so cool. But the 3 number 1 seeds that are left are still in the tournament and looked really good over the weekend. It was my first time watching Baylor and Gonzaga this season, and they are both a force to be reckoned with. I watched Baylor last night. They've got speed. especially at that point guard position. That guy can fly. And then they're just an overall well-rounded team. Gonzaga put on a clinic on Sunday, with their ball handling and their passing. They made it look so easy and was incredibly effective. And then after seeing how USC handled Oregon, I think it makes their matchup with Gonzaga really interesting. I feel like the question of the tournament has just been, who can beat Gonzaga? And I think USC kind of maybe fits the bill. It could do that. I still think Gonzaga comes out on top. I think they play tonight. But it may be their toughest matchup thus far, and then not to leave them out here, Michigan looked incredibly strong against Florida State. It was an overall dominant performance, on the offensive side and defensive side. They did a great job of getting Hunter Dickinson involved, and then Mike Smith, to me, probably had his best game of the tournament so far. So it's going to be really interesting to see what happens tonight and, moving forward, because if Michigan plays like they did Sunday night, they're going to be really tough to beat. I think a lot of people knew they were going to be a tough out in the tournament, but without Isaiah Livers, people may have thought, that would have caused them to struggle, but they have honestly thrived thus far. It really shows their depth on the bench. I do think the consistent play of Mike Smith is the answer to Michigan continuing on in the tournament. So I think they beat UCLA tonight to go on to play Gonzaga, which would be a super fun matchup. So hopefully I'm right and we get to see that game. A couple quick notes here on the NFL. Some big NFL draft trades happened last week. The San Francisco 49ers traded with the Miami Dolphins to move up in the draft to the number 3 overall pick. So they are now expected to take a quarterback and move on from Jimmy G, even though they came out and said we're still planning to hold on to, Jimmy G is still part of our future, et cetera, the blah, blah, blah BS that organizations say. But you don't see teams move up that high in the draft and to not take a quarterback. Especially, they gave the Dolphins a 2022 first-round pick, a 2022 third-round pick, and a 2023 first-round pick. So they gave up a ton of future capital to move up to number 3, which basically means they're going to take a QB. I think the question will just be which quarterback is it going to be? I think it could either be Mac Jones from Alabama or Justin Fields from Ohio State. Or if for some reason the Jets don't take Zach Wilson, you could see the 49ers take him. So then you have the Dolphins move down to number 12, but then like 15 minutes later, the Dolphins traded with the Eagles to move back up to number 6, and now the Eagles will slide back down to the number 12 spot. It was a lot to process as it was happening last week. I was watching the Pat McAfee show while it was happening, and they couldn't believe what was going on either. It definitely shakes up a lot of things, heading into the draft, which is only a month away, a month from yesterday. So I definitely will have a lot more on the draft as we get closer. I love the NFL draft. It's one of my favorite things to watch during the year. They do such a good job of building that brand and making that a watchable thing. I mean, we simply just watch teams pick people, and it's just I don't know why it's so fun for me to watch. So looking forward to that. We'll definitely have more info as we get closer to it. All right, let's get into some Reds updates along with some MLB overview as we start the regular season this Thursday. Oh, it feels so good that baseball is going to be back. I am so excited. My arms are up in the air right now. I'm like cheering so loudly in my apartment that baseball is back. I can't wait. Let's see here. So the Reds have made a ton of moves over the last week as they try to finalize their major league roster, who's injured, who's not. They want to have all that figured out before they break camp. So they did release D. Strange Gordon last week. I was kind of surprised by that. I don't really know if he was having a good spring, in their eyes, but I thought for sure, with his experience and speed that he would have made the club. And I read that they still do want to bring him back on a minor league deal if he doesn't sign elsewhere. But I think because he's a veteran, he's probably out of options. You can't just send him to AAA. So they had to just outright release him if he wasn't going to make the team. So I think he also would have given us probably too many infielders, when there may be more versatile options out there. You have Kyle Farmer, who can basically play anywhere. So I was also reading that outfielder Aristides Aquino doesn't have any more of those minor league options, which basically means the Reds can't send him down to the minor leagues without him being put on waivers, where another MLB team could claim him off of waivers. So basically the Reds would lose Aquino if they tried to send him to the minors, because he more than likely would not clear waivers, without another team claiming him. So with that, they had to keep him on the major league roster, which is fine. I want to give him more at-bats. I think if he can get back to what he started in, I think that was 2019. I mean, that would be awesome to have that type of guy. He obviously wasn't that last year because he was up and down from the alternative site to the major league roster, then never really played when he was on the major league roster. So we just never got to really see a full sample of Aquino last year, so. But with him and his situation, it probably didn't make enough room for Gordon, which is what it is, I guess. The Reds also sent Brandon Finnegan to the minor leagues. I really thought he was taking a step forward to make the club to start the season, but maybe he's just still not quite ready on a consistent basis, to take on a bullpen role. Or there were just other guys that have been better this spring, and they got to roll with the hot hands. Let's see, the Reds also released Noe Ramirez, which is who they got in that trade for Raisel Iglesias. It's not ideal that they basically got nothing in that trade at this point, since they just released the guy that they got. But, unfortunately, you can't win every trade, but if you think back, I think I saw somebody post on Twitter, it's like, to everybody hating on this trade not working out, just remember, the Reds gave up Dan Straley for Luis Castillo, and we got Eugenio Suarez for like a bag of potato chips. So you would like to see your team have success in every trade that they make, but it just doesn't always come to fruition that way. So the LA Angels probably got the better end of that deal, but it is what it is. Let's see. It looks like the Reds could start with both Sonny Gray and Michael Lorenzen on the 10-day injured list to start the season. I've covered here the last few weeks that Sonny Gray's been dealing with some back spasms for a while now, so hopefully he's able to come back soon. Lorenzen is having some shoulder issues, and the timetable for his return seems to still kind of be up in the air. Lorenzen was working towards a spot in the starting rotation this season, so not sure what that's going to do for him moving forward. I think I like him in either role, be it the rotation or the bullpen. He was effective last year in the rotation, so I think giving him a consistent shot there would be good. Let's see. The Reds did announce their starting rotation to start the season. I'll be honest, before I read the names here, it's not as exciting as it was last year. It feels very bummer, but it is what it is. So, let's see. We've got Luis Castillo, obviously, Tyler Mahle, Wade Miley, Jeff Hoffman, and Jose De Leon. The rotation hasn't yet been set other than Luis Castillo starting on opening day this Thursday. I would imagine Tyler Mahle would probably go on the second day on Saturday. So definitely a different set of names than what we were used to seeing last year, with Sonny Gray and Trevor Bauer in that 2-3 position with Luis Castillo. So, but hopefully Sonny will be back soon, and those guys can hold down the fort until then. Tyler Mahle had a really solid season last year, so hopefully he can, build upon that. I'm curious to see how Wade Miley does, if he can stay healthy. I feel like we still haven't seen who he actually is yet because of the injuries. He's a guy that not going to overpower you with his stuff, but he is going to work you. He works fast. He can control any part of the strike zone. So we'll see a healthy Wade Miley if that is what we signed 2 years ago or whatever. I'm very interested to see Jeff Hoffman. Really haven't heard much about him at all. I looked into him a little bit. He was a first-round draft pick of the, I think, Toronto Blue Jays a while ago. So this feels like another one of those Derek Johnson projects to bring a first rounder back to competition. Because they're doing the same with Jose De Leon. He was a former first-round draft pick of the Tampa Bay Rays that we signed, I think, last year. So I really want to see TJ Antone in that starting rotation as soon as possible. I think, his name alone already makes that rotation look even stronger, especially after what he did last year. So I think they may want to ease him kind of back in from his injury from this spring. I think he maybe tweaked his groin. And just have him pitch out of the bullpen until he's ready. But I think if he starts the season lights out in the bullpen, velocity up, breaking stuff working, I think he needs to be moved to the starting rotation immediately. I think he honestly, if you had Sonny Gray, Luis Castillo, and TJ Antone as your 1, 2, and 3 guys, I think I would roll with that. It's not necessarily Trevor Bauer, but like TJ Antone literally could be that next Trevor Bauer, honestly. Like he is a monster. And I think his velocity is even higher than Trevor's, So yeah, a lot of still kind of question marks in the Reds rotation, with the injuries to Gray and Lorenzen, it doesn't really give us a real picture on what the rotation's actually going to be when everyone's healthy. So hopefully, these guys stepping in, again, can kind of hold down the fort, and the offense is going to have to step up and score some runs because we don't necessarily have the arms that we did last year. And maybe we do. The bullpen is a question mark for me as far as depth. You've got Amir Garrett and Lucas Sims moving into that kind of set-up closer role, but then who do you have that steps into their roles from last year? So doesn't really feel like there's those guys. Last guy, I can't pronounce his first name, but last name Perez, he made the team. I'm really excited to see him. The little bit I've seen in spring training of him, been a monster. High velocity, really excited to see him. But speaking of the offense, it looks like Eugenio Suarez is going to start the season as the everyday shortstop. Really excited for that because I think it gives the Reds so many more options, with who they can keep on the major league roster. This allows Mike Moustakas to move over to third base, and then it makes room for the young guy, Jonathan India, to make the club and start at second base. India was the 5th overall selection in the first round of the 2018 draft. He's had a really good spring, and I'm really looking forward to his youthful energy, flowing locks of hair to be on the club to start the season. So I'm really looking forward to that. I think it's something that the Reds have been missing as far as having that youthful guy come on and just be a spark. We're not the youngest roster in the league by any means, so we need those young guys to come on and kind of be that spark. So I think the hype surrounding him is less than when Nick Senzel came up a couple years ago, but I think India can have a bigger impact right away, because Senzel just unfortunately hasn't been able to stay healthy, and it's no one's fault. It's happened that way. So, and this will also keep Kyle Farmer, as the guy who can play anywhere, which I think is for the Reds is more valuable than having him as the everyday shortstop. He can fill in at literally any position, first, second, third, short. He could probably play left field. I know he's come in and pitched before. He plays catcher, so he could literally play at every position. So I don't think this will be a very good defensive Reds team. I don't think that's a secret, but I think the bats could really make up for it. Anything you're losing with Suarez at shortstop defensively, which he's not going to be the best defensive shortstop in the league. That's obvious. But what his bat brings is worth it so much more, and then that opens up the opportunity for an offensive guy like Jonathan India to be able to play every day, and you keep Mike Moustakas in the lineup too. So there's some serious power and potential there for that offense, which is really exciting, Let's see, Shogo Akiyama, he's going to be starting the season on the injured list, which is a really huge bummer. He's never really had a chance to get going this spring. He had to take some time off early in the spring, and then he tweaked his hamstring, I think. So I think that'll leave the starting outfield as Nick Castellanos in right field, Jesse Winker in left field, and then assuming Senzel is healthy, Nick Senzel in center field. So if Senzel isn't healthy to start the season, I think they may play Aquino out in center field. I know they have done that. I think they even did that last year, but I think they did it this spring a little bit too. But hopefully Senzel will be ready. I don't really like Aquino in center field, but so hopefully Senzel will be ready there. It definitely feels like, as a fan, there's quite a bit of uncertainty as to how this Reds team is going to play this season. You know, I was really hoping for a fast start from the club since they struggle to do that every year. You know, but with the injuries they have to some key guys, it's definitely going to make it tougher to do this year. So I think to start the season, we're going to see a starting 9 of Tucker Barnhart behind the plate, Joey Votto at first, Jonathan India at second, Mike Moustakas at third, Eugenio Suarez at short, Jesse Winker in left, Castellanos in right, and Senzel in center, assuming he's healthy, and then the starting pitcher. So as far as the lineup goes, I'm not sure what they're going to do. I doubt they will bat India at leadoff or anywhere up in the top part of the lineup. I could see him kind of in that 6 to 8 territory. Winker or Senzel will probably lead off, followed by Castellanos batting second, Votto third, Suarez fourth, Moose fifth, and then either Winker or Senzel sixth. Then you've got India seventh, Barnhart or Stevenson eighth, and then the pitcher. I think if Stevenson plays, I bet he bats higher than when Barnhart plays. But that's my early season guess. So we'll see. That's my guess for what the starting lineup will be for Thursday. It hasn't been announced yet, obviously, but that's my guess. So let's see if I'm right. All right, as for the rest of Major League Baseball, there seems to be some definitive teams that are going to be really, really good this season. You know, I think first off, you have to mention the LA Dodgers. Coming off of winning the World Series last year and then going out and signing Trevor Bauer this offseason. I mean, they already had a crazy good pitching staff, and now you add him to that list as well. You know, and then you have to love what the San Diego Padres have done over the last 2 years. They've added so much pitching, and Mike Clevenger, although he had Tommy John surgery, so I'm pretty sure he's out all of this season. But then this offseason, they added Yu Darvish, Blake Snell, and Joe Musgrove. So you add that to a rotation that also has Chris Paddock, and you have a really strong starting rotation in San Diego. It's crazy. They also signed Mark Melicone, I believe is his last name, to a 1-year deal, which gives you a solid guy out of the bullpen. He pitched for the Braves last year, so I remember seeing him when the Braves played the Reds in the postseason. He was lights out. So then they signed their young superstar Fernando Tatis Jr. to a 14-year, $340 million contract. I do think the Dodgers and Padres are going to be dueling it out all season long. You know, definitely some excitement happening with those teams in 2021. Elsewhere around the league, you have the St. Louis Cardinals, who just always seem to be in the thick of it when it comes to the playoffs. Adding Nolan Arenado this offseason definitely makes them, in my opinion, the favorites to win the NL Central, as much as that pains me to say. They also just always have young guys from their farm system that just come up and produce right away. It's insane to watch. So I would expect more of the same from them this season as well. They also brought back Yadier Molina for another year. They've still got Adam Wainwright. So they've got guys, like veteran guys who have been there literally forever. And then you add that with the youthful guys that they bring up that can contribute right away. And then you add a guy like Arenado, and it's like, and they have Paul Goldschmidt, and it's like, Jesus. Let's see here. And then you have the Braves, who have also done quite a bit this offseason. They signed starting pitcher Charlie Morton to a 1-year, $15 million deal, which for those following along, he was on the starting rotation for the Tampa Bay Rays last year. They also re-signed Marcell Ozuna to a 4-year, $65 million contract extension. He seemed to fit in really well in Atlanta last year. So with Ozzy Albies and Ronald Acuna, I feel like Marcell Ozuna really fits in with that kind of energetic play. So And then you have a really solid rotation in Atlanta, some really good young guys like Max Fried, Ian Anderson, and Mike Soroka. I mean, they're really going to be a force again this season, down there in Atlanta, especially with that talented offense that they have yet again with so much young talent, so I don't know. Other than that, around the league, the Yankees are the Yankees. They buy their rosters. I did see that former Red Jay Bruce did make the Major League roster, which is awesome. I'm happy for Jay and that he still gets to play baseball. It's pretty amazing. Feels like he's been around forever at this point. So I'm sure they'll be good again. It seems like the Red Sox are still rebuilding or whatever they're doing. I don't know. You don't really hear much about them at the national level. So I'll be curious to see if the Rays can do what they did last year without some of their top guys in their rotation. They always have really good young talent, and they are another team that has a solid farm system and great foundation to build these guys up to compete. The Rays Major League team almost seems like it's a farm system for some of these wealthier teams in Major League Baseball. So they have guys that are dominant in their position, and then the Rays can't afford them anymore, so they go on to another team and make a bunch of money. This seems like the cycle for the Rays, but, serious kudos to them for being able to develop guys so consistently and still compete at such a high level. It's pretty awesome. I think the White Sox have done a ton this offseason and last offseason to really make a run at the postseason and the World Series. They have a really solid foundation of young guys in the lineup with Tim Anderson and Luis Robert, and then you match that with some veteran experience with guys like Jose Abreu and Yasmani Grandal. The starting rotation also looks pretty solid with Lucas Giolito, don't know if I'm saying that right, and Dallas Keuchel leading the way. They have a young lefty in their bullpen. I remember seeing last year Garrett Crochet, who came up last season. He just dominated last year. Throws smoke at like 99, 100 all the time. Is just absolutely nasty. Shout out lefties. And then they also brought in 76-year-old Tony La Russa to manage the White Sox this season, which is going to be very interesting to see how that goes. You have a lot of young players with a very old man and an old school man running the show. So could be really good or really bad. Let's see, staying in the AL Central, you definitely have to look at the Twins as a team who is still there and could easily win first place in the division this season. They have another solid foundation within their starting rotation, and then a strong veteran presence in their lineup with guys like Josh Donaldson and Miguel Sano. Then you have the guy who seems to be aging like fine wine and Nelson Cruz, at a ripe age of 41 years, still smashing at the DH position. I don't think I really have anything else in any other teams. I'll be curious to see if the LA Angels of Anaheim will be able to finally turn the corner. They've paid a lot of money for a lot of talent. Anthony Rendon, Mike Trout. It's time for them to start taking that next step, and not just wasting, Mike Trout's talent and career. All right, before I go here, I want to give my before the season predictions on who I think will win divisions, who will be the wild cards, and who ultimately will win the World Series this year. So here we go. Let's start in the American League. I think the Yankees are going to win the AL East. I think the White Sox are going to win the AL Central. I think the Astros will win the AL West. The wild card play-in game is going to feature, in my opinion, the Minnesota Twins versus the Oakland A's, and I think the A's win that and move on to be the wild card team. In the National League, I think the Atlanta Braves will win the NL East again, with the Mets finishing in a slightly distant second. I think they've made a lot of moves to be better this season, so I think the Cardinals will win the NL Central. That pains me to say, but there just seems like there's too much uncertainty with how the Reds will perform this year. So at this point, I think the Cardinals are going to win the division. I hope I'm wrong, and maybe I will be. Then I think the Dodgers will win the NL West, with the Padres finishing in second by like 2 games. And then I think the wild card play-in game will be the Padres versus the Reds. I think the Reds get it done in that game to move on. But overall, I think the Dodgers could very easily go on to repeat as World Series champs. They just have so much talent and a ton of different ways to beat you. They have a top-notch offense, a top-notch starting rotation, and a really solid bullpen. So it's going to be really tough for anybody to unseat the Dodgers this year, I think. So I'm going with the LA Dodgers are going to repeat as World Series champs. Either way, I am so excited that baseball is back. The 162-game sprint to the postseason begins this Thursday. I think that's going to do it for today's episode. Thanks so much for joining me. If you have a chance to watch your team's opening day game this week, I hope you enjoy it. I know I'm going to. I have my delicious domestic beer chilling in the fridge, ready to be cracked open. Spring is here, and that means baseball is back, baby. I hope you have a great rest of your week. Stay safe out there, and I will check in with you next week. Bye, everybody.